Hello and welcome. This is Schnee from Archives of Nearless, and today I'm going to show you at least how I heal with my Sorcerer healer. This is kind of a guy-ish, and I wanted to put it out there because at the moment we are all trying to figure out what are the best stats with the new expansion, and did anything change? And I'm very sure that Delphi will come up with a guide shortly, and it will be, well, spot on as always. But until then, let me try to help you out a bit. So let's jump right into it and look at the gear. Well, that's where it all starts. Okay, I'm a PvP player, so my gear is up to par in PvP. I have fully ranked set, also augmented. There is one thing though I'd like to mention, and that is PvP vendors at the moment don't sell any item modification whatsoever. So what used to be a huge part of PvP before, so that you bought the gear and then you modded it the way that was supposedly best, this is not possible anymore. So, except from the augmenting bit, the gear that you buy must be what BioWare had in mind stat-wise. So this might even be valid for PvE, even though I don't really have a full PvE set yet, and so I can't really talk about it because I haven't had the chance of testing the PvE gear. So what I did with the augments is I put in 10 crit augments and 4 mastery augments, because it seems to be the case that crit is the way to go as a healer at the moment. Supposedly not only as a soak healer, but most definitely as a soak healer, because the numbers I've been putting out since I've augmented this gear they are ridiculous. So let's see. So the gear itself comes with a little over 2000 power rating. And, well, I should point out here at the top, I have no buffs on, so this is unbuffed. All the stats are unbuffed. So the base stat is 2288, which amounts, in healing terms, to 1.5k bonus healing, which is really good. My crit rating I increased with 10 augments in crit, by quite a bit. I think you start at about 26 or 20, yeah, almost 27%, and now I'm, well, one short of a 35% crit rating, and the crit multiplier is about a little under 66%. This also is due to 4 augments in mastery, because as you can see, the crit chance is increased by my mastery as well.
It was 33% crit.
Yeah, so that's pretty much what I did there. And look at the alacrity. So the PvP gear comes with almost 10% alacrity, and I have the feeling that this is kind of the sweet spot, because in my PvE gear I augmented fully into alacrity, and I got to almost 13%, 12% something, and I believe from about 10% or a little over 10% alacrity, the bonus I was getting, so the addition in, reduction of activation and stuff like that, was so small that it really wasn't worth all the augmentation. So better to probably go for crit or mastery. So to give you an idea of PvE gear, even though, again, I'm a PvP player, I don't have the right gear, and you can ask around in the guild, I'm decent enough to take me in story mode, but let's see how I fare in hard mode. Alright, let's compare a pair of 220 PvE gloves to my 2.8 PvP gloves. PvE with alacrity and PvP in this case with mastery. And when you look at the stat changes, then you can see they are not that huge except endurance. And if you bear in mind that you have 14 item slots, so the 98 endurance times 14 is about 1.4k additional endurance. And when you look at my endurance, it's about 5,000. So almost a third more of endurance would make a huge difference. So for all you PvP players out there, if you want to go story mode operations in your PvP gear, that's fine because there's bolster, and if you have a full set, you get the marvelous set bonuses, which are so good, and with the bolster, you're just going to be more than sufficient to heal story mode. When it comes to hard mode, I'd suspect you have a hard time surviving that if there's damage incoming, because you're simply lacking the endurance. But I will try it and let you know whether or not I died instantly or it actually is valid. So that's about what I have to say about gear and main stats. Let's have a look at our discipline path. Again, I'm a PvP healer, so this might not be what you want to spec into as a PvE healer. But first of all, let's look at the discipline path and see what we got here. And the first thing is forced bending, which is here. And this is where Resurgence, your bread and butter skill basically, falls into place. By the way, this is Resurgence, immediately heals the target for 1.8 to 2.9k, plus an additional 2.3k over 15 seconds. Quite frankly, I have to admit, the first time I came back to the game and saw that skill, I thought, okay, this is a bit shit, and yeah, I'm not going to use it, which was a huge mistake and was pointed out to me by someone, and I thank you, whoever you are. That was really brilliant, because after that I myself read this and found out that I made a huge blunder. So Resurgence, really important because of this spec force bending, and it makes it grants you force bending if you use Resurgence, and for 15 seconds you have multiple bonies or additional effects on your other healing abilities. I mean, you can read it yourself, but Dark Heal critical chance increased, Dark Infusion activation time lowered, Innovate critical chance increased, and Revivification costs less. So that's the first thing that you need to bear in mind. The next thing is here. Reconstruction increases the duration of Resurgence by 6 seconds, which is significant. In addition, Resurgence grants protection to its target for 45 seconds. Okay, what kind of protection? Protected targets have their armor rating increased by 10%. And now this is really, really nice. This is kind of the nano probe that we Sorc healers have. So we come back to this when we talk about our priority list or rotation. The next thing was a Revivification. Ah, yeah, exactly. So applying a periodic healing effect to up to 8 allies within 8 meters of the target area, which heals for blah 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 blah. Once a target has received the periodic healing effect, the target may leave the area and will continue to be healed by the effect. Now, this is really something, it didn't used to be like that. I don't know if they changed it with this expansion, because I only came back shortly before the last expansion ended, and I didn't play for over a year. But I remember in the beginning of the game, or up to Strongholds, that we healers always told our party members to stand in the healing circle and not, run away. But now you can simply put your healing circle on a spot where people will run through it, and then the healing effect is applied and they don't need to stand inside of the healing circle anymore, which is pretty darn awesome, so keep that in mind. The next thing I want to talk about is Force Surge, which on one hand makes your Consuming Darkness not put a debuff on you that is called Weary. It's kind of the way to go when you use Consuming Darkness. Don't use it without Force Surge. Let's see. Here we have, that was a bit too high, sorry. Here we have Consuming Darkness, and it's basically if you run out of force, that's the way you get it back. So if you use your Innovate, for example, let me do that shortly. Here, Innovate, and oh, this time it didn't work. Well, let's do this again, shall we? Ah, there was a crit. So I had one crit on my Innovate, which gave me not only, or give me this shiny thing around my Consuming Darkness, and that is actually Force Search, which means I have one stack of Force Search, and if I will now use my Consuming Darkness, that basically amounts to me getting back a lot of force and not getting a penalty, which is this one. So, hey, come on, show me the penalty here. It's wary. Force regeneration rate decreased. So even though I got back force, now my force regen is decreased, and if I don't combine these two things, so Consuming Darkness with Force Search, I will run out of force eventually. So that's definitely something to bear in mind. But there is another thing that Force Search is really good for, because if you don't have force problems at the moment, and you have, as you can see now, 3 stacks of Force Search, you get the instant buff on your revivification, so your AoE healing circle, which looks like this. So especially for AoE healing, a group when there's an AoE boss effect or something, this is kind of cool to bear in mind. So stacking up 3 stacks of Force Search for that very effect. And lastly, Dark Concentration. So Dark Concentration. This means Crushing Darkness, Lightning Strike, Dark Infusion, and Revivification grant Dark Concentration, which causes your next Dark Heal to activate instantly and consume no force. This effect may not occur more than once every 10 seconds. So, my Dark Heal. Dark Heal is kind of an ability that you never use without Dark Concentration, because it costs 45 force, and it heals for, let's say 6.5k, which is not that much. I mean, Innovate costs less, and if it crits, or even without crit, it heals for 11k. So you don't really want to use Dark Heal. But we use Dark Infusion, we get our Dark Concentration, and now our Dark Heal becomes instant, and it crits. So this is really good because I didn't use any force for it. So again, if you, especially in single target healing, so you're healing the boss, for example, putting in a Dark Infusion and then getting your instant and free Dark Heal, that's kind of a great combination to up someone, within 2 seconds. So, let's see, what else do we got in the combat proficiencies? Because that's it with the discipline path. So we go to the skillful tree. And I'm PvP player, so I spec'd into Force Suffusion, into Empty Body, and into Dark Speed. Well, I'd say no matter if you're a PvP or PvE player, Force Suffusion is a good thing to spec into. Overload heals you and up to 7 affected allies for, about 2k. It's just an additional AoE healing skill, which is always a good thing. More skills, more healing, grand. The second thing, Empty Body. Additionally, again, I think this is also valid for PvE, because increasing all healing received by 10%, if you ever get the aggro, you will love that skill. And in PvP, you're going to be focused anyway, so this is kind of a no-brainer. So, for PvP, I would strongly suggest Dark Speed, because Dark Heal increases the movement speed of the target by 50% for 6 seconds. Your party will simply love you, and they will take less damage because they can run around better, and that's kind of the point in PvP. Don't stand there and be targeted and focus down, but move. In PvE, I would say this is probably the better way to go. This is Sith-defined and increases damage reduction by 3%. So again, your survivability goes up, even though I can see this being valid in PvP as well. For my playstyle in PvP, I went with Dark Speed, but in PvE, I would probably spec into Sith-Defiance. So the Masterful tree, I spec'd into Immersion and into Conspiring Force. And I would say in PvE, you first spec into Suppression, because activating Cloud Mine grants Suppression, which increases damage reduction by 25% for 6 seconds. So, if you get the aggro in a boss fight, for example, it's not going to take long. In hard modes, in hard modes, SM, it will take longer, I think. But in hard modes or even Nightmare, you're going to be dead. Or you're going to take at least a lot of damage. And 25% damage reduction seems like a nice little thing for you to survive that, in addition to, well, lowering your threat. The next thing in PvE I would suggest is Lightning Barrier. Is this one, and increases the amount absorbed by your static barrier by 10%. This is just, 10% less damage taken by the people you grant your static barrier. The other abilities like Electric Binding, can't see that being valid in PvE. Corrupted Flash, well, this is actually a good thing, and I can see that being valid in PvE, so maybe you want to spec into this, except of the Lightning Barrier. And the other thing is Immersion, because Force Speed grants Immersion, removing all movement impairing effects and granting immunity to them for the duration. This is clearly what you will go for in PvP. That's kind of what you want in PvP as a healer, like, leave me alone, I'm out of here. But for PvE, I suspect this could be valid for some boss fights, but all in all, probably Lightning Barrier and Suppression the better choices. Now, I already talked a little about PvP here, so Immersion, that's a no-brainer. And except from Immersion, it's basically up to your playstyle, whatever you like. So, if you want to have Electric Binding, which I think is the coolest skill, actually. It gives you a 5-second immobilizer for the enemy, and immobilization stuns and stuff. That's what PvP really is all about. Taking the ability to defend or do damage away from your opponents while you're healing or doing damage yourself. That's kind of the name of the game. But Corrupted Flesh is also very good. I mean, especially as a healer, you get dotted a lot, and 15% less damage from that. That's really valid in PvP as well. Lightning Barrier, well, 10% more damage not incoming is always a good thing. And then Conspiring Force, which I opted for. This is not a healing skill, but targets affected by your affliction are slowed by 30% for its duration. Now let's have a look. Here we have my affliction, or our affliction, and it has a duration of 18 seconds, and it's a dot. So for 18 seconds, the target will be slowed by 30%. If you, like I tend to do it, or want to do it most of the time if I have the chance, spread this on the enemy team, they're simply all, or most of them, 30% slower, which gives your team a significant advantage. And yeah, this is kind of supporting your team, not in terms of healing, but in terms of crowd control. I like that. Lastly, Heroic. I spec'd into Surging Speed and, of course, Force Mobility. I'm not sure about Surging Speed for PvP. I might spec back into Backlash. Backlash is, your static barrier. Erupts in a flash of light when they end, binding up to 8 targets or enemies. for 3 seconds. This is, yeah, this is very good for your survivability. I showed that in another video already. But when you look at surging speed, polarity shift increases your movement speed by 50%. And force speed lasts half a second longer. And when force barrier ends, your cooldown on force speed is finished. And this is really the combination of this, because polarity shift, the 20% alacrity boost and immunity to pushback is a really good thing, but 50% more movement speed for 10 seconds, that's rather huge. That's really good. And if everything goes wrong and you have to use your force barrier, having force speed immediately when it ends is kind of an assurance that this time you will survive, no matter what. So I tried this for a bit now, and I like it, even though I miss my static barrier erupting and stunning everybody. That was kind of cool. So I talked a lot about PvP, so I'm going to stick with PvP now. And, well, force mobility, innovate, can be activated while moving. This is no-brainer. This is the skill in PvP that you need, and I suspect it's also the skill that you want for PvE. It's just ridiculously good. In PvP, I would, yeah, well, as I just said, either backlash or surging speed. For PvE, it's basically up to your playstyle. You know, look at them. If they can kindle to your playstyle, then maybe you want to go for that. But I would strongly recommend, no matter if you do PvP or PvE, take force mobility and then kind of take your pick. Probably going to be surging speed, because it's kind of 50% movement speed for 10 seconds is in itself a great thing. So that's all about the combat proficiencies. And the next thing I'm going to talk about is, yeah, rotation and priority list. Well, as for rotation, there simply is none. It's really very situational as a Sorc healer. So I'm going to give you a priority list, which is also correct most of the time, but I encounter enough situations where this priority list is not the most efficient way of doing it. So first off, let me say, if you're a Sorc healer and your healing works, meaning your group doesn't die, you're doing it correctly. Stick with that. That's fine. If you're not going to plan on, you know, doing nightmare operations, this whole guide is basically interesting maybe, but none of your concern. The first and foremost skill on the priority list is Resurgence. Simply because of all the benefits it gives you. The benefits I already explained, and especially in AoE healing. Remember, Resurgence makes roaming mend instant. Looks like this. Yeah. And that's kind of what you're looking for in AoE healing. But also in single target healing, you start with Resurgence, and you try to keep that up on your group members. And if you know, in single target healing, if you're healing the tank, for example, you try to keep this one up on the tank at all times. After Resurgence, let's look at single target first. So single target would be Innovate. Again, combining the two is kind of what you want to do. It didn't crit at all. But Innovate is not only a great healing skill and puts out a lot of healing, and you can do it while moving, but it also grants you Force Surge, which can make your AoE healing circle instant, or at least gives you Consuming Darkness for free, so without wariness. After Innovate, there is the Dark Heal, but Dark Heal only with Dark Concentration. So when it's free and instant, that's when you use your Dark Heal, never use it without it, it's just a waste of your force. Then single target. The next thing in my priority list would be Roaming Mend. It isn't really a single target healing ability. It's definitely AoE healing or group healing, but still it puts out so much healing that it is better, in my opinion, than Dark Infusion, which would be the last on my priority list. So if you're out of all the things to do, then, well, stick with Dark Infusion. Alright, AoE healing. Again, you start with Roaming Mend. The next on the list, you start with Resurgence, I'm sorry. Then the next on the list here is definitely Roaming Mend. After that is your Healing Circle, Revivification. Preferably you do that with the instance buff that comes from having 3 stacks of Force Surge through your ability Innovate. But, well, even without that, it's still one of your better AoE healing abilities. And then don't forget about your Overload if you spec into it. It heals as well. Lastly, Static Barrier. If you know the boss fight, or you know the situation, you know that the beginning of a war zone, everybody from both teams will be in mid, and you know already there is going to be a lot of incoming damage on your group, then yes, use your Static Barrier. Spam it on everybody so you get the damage reduction. Or, yeah, the damage mitigation, I have to say. In single target healing, obviously Static Barrier, keeping up on the tank or the single target that you're healing, is also kind of the way to go. But even though I myself like Static Barrier and try to keep it up at all times on everybody in my group, there's a lot of Sorc healers out there who disagree on that with me, because they think you're wasting 17 fours, and especially you're wasting time using other abilities that are more valid. Alright, I think I covered what I wanted to say. I hope I could help you out a bit, and this was not a total waste of your time. This is Schnee signing off. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.